Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. You know, those of you that have been watching for a while know that I cover everything that I feel would be, important to the veteran community, the veteran sphere. That includes spouses, dependents, people who support veterans, all that good stuff. And so I don't just focus on VA information and disability, compensation, and that's, my focus, right? It's everything. I do talk about that, and my past experiences and history has been in the veteran benefit world, and I've been accredited and all that stuff with the VA. So, I get it, I understand it, and I can speak to it. And it is important, so don't get me wrong. But with the amount of information that's out there that we don't often get, I feel it's really important to share much more than just that piece of the pie. So with that, I wanted to jump into this specific topic, and it is, I'll just read the headline, and then you'll get the topic, and we'll go from there. All right, so the headline is thousands, that's a lot, thousands of veterans, us. So thousands of veterans face foreclosure, and it's not their fault. The VA could help is the title. So curious to see what this article is all about. Wanted to share my kind of 2 cents along the way, and just as kind of another, I guess, backdrop. I was in the mortgage industry for many years as well. So kind of the two biggest worlds that I was in since my discharge out of the Marine Corps in '97. A long time ago, has been mortgages for about 10 or 12 years, and then veteran benefits, all types of benefits, from employment to homeless resources to VA benefits, right? So, all right, so with this headline, thousands of veterans face foreclosure and it's not their fault, let's jump into it. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. And watch this, because even though this may not affect you, because it's going to be a small percent of a small percentage of people that this may happen to, you could end up being that resource that could help somebody else because you may know something. And I'll drop my 2 cents, like I said, and some maybe some helpful tips along the way. So let's jump into it. If you're not a member, consider joining. I do really appreciate that. It's a way to support the channel, and it helps me to find you in the comments. All right, jumping into it. Becky Queen remembers opening the letter with her foreclosure notice. My heart dropped, she said, and my hands were shaking. Queen lives on a small farm in rural Oklahoma with her husband Ray and their 2 young kids. Ray is a U.S. Army veteran who was wounded in Iraq. Since the 1940s, the federal government has helped veterans like him buy homes through the VA loan program run by the Department of Veterans Affairs. But now the VA has put his family on the brink of losing their home. I didn't do anything wrong, says Ray Queen. The only thing I did was trust a company that I was supposed to trust with my mortgage. So I'm curious where this is going to go. Let's find out. Like millions of other Americans, the Queens took advantage of what they called a COVID mortgage forbearance. Okay, so basically, through COVID, there was this opportunity where people who lost their jobs, had income shortages, that sort of stuff, were able to put in for a forbearance. In other words, I am not going to be making payments during a certain period of time because of my financial situation, most likely due to COVID. So let's see what happens here. So the Queens took advantage of what's called a COVID mortgage forbearance, which allowed homeowners to skip mortgage payments. It was set up by Congress after the pandemic hit for people who lost income. But an NPR investigation has found that thousands of veterans who took a forbearance are now at risk of losing their homes through no fault of their own. And while the VA is working on a way to fix the problem, for many it could be too late. For the Queens, this all started September of 2021 when Becky's mother died of COVID-19. She had to take an extended leave from work and lost her job. So last year, with their savings dwindling, the couple says they called the company that manages their mortgage. So this would be the mortgage servicer. This is who you make your payments to. So sometimes whoever you, just to kind of throw it out there, you buy a home, you get a mortgage, Sometimes the mortgage company is really just a funder. They'll fund your loan, they'll do all that, and then right away they sell your loan to somebody else who then you end up making payments to, and that would be the mortgage servicer. So I don't know why they call it that manages their mortgage, whatever. So Mr. Cooper okay, let me start that over. So last year, with their savings dwindling, the couple says they called the company that manages their mortgage Mr. Cooper, and were told, I don't know what that means. They screwed up somehow. So anyway, they were told that they could skip 6 months of mortgage payments. And once they got back on their feet, they could start paying again. And the couple says they were told they wouldn't owe the missed payments in a big lump sum. So oftentimes in this type of a situation, you would imagine that 6-month break in mortgage payments would then be added to the end of the mortgage, extending out the term. So let's move on. I very specifically asked, how does this work, says Becky Queen. They said, we're taking all of your payments, we're bundling them, and we're putting them at the end, which is exactly what I said. That is, the missed payments would be moved to the back of their loan term so they could just start making their normal payments again. And this would be a normal situation. But that's not how it worked out, sadly. In October 2022, the Department of Veterans Affairs ended the so-called Partial Claim Payment Program, or PCP, that enabled homeowners to do that. This happened even through the mortgage industry. Housing advocates and veterans groups all warned the VA not to end the program, saying thousands of homeowners needed to catch up on the missed payments. Interest rates had risen so much that they couldn't afford to refinance or get back on track any other way. Ray Queen says nobody told him about any of this. How does this happen? Queen asked. This is supposed to be a program that you all have to help people in times of crisis, so you don't have to take their house from them. The Queens say they tried to come off of their forbearance in February of this year and resume paying their mortgage. They were both working again, but they ran into delays with the mortgage company. Then in September, the couple says they were told they needed to come up with more than $22,000, which they don't have, or either sell their house or get foreclosed on. Wow, that is horrific. So I'm going to continue reading this. I just wanted to throw out, if you're still on here, that foreclosure is obviously not the way you want to go. Now, there could be many different reasons that somebody is in a hardship and maybe there is no other way to turn. One option instead of foreclosure would be to try to sell your home, right? Obviously. Now, you could end up getting top dollar for your home if you currently have a very low interest rate on your loan. So let's say that veteran A has a 3% or 2.5% interest rate on their home, and they need to, get X dollars to pay everything off. And the realtor's like, man, that's like $50,000 higher than people are willing to pay right now. It might appraise, but it's really close, whatever. You could throw it on the market and see what happens, because your loan, that 2.5% or 3%, you could do it as an assumable loan, meaning that the person that's buying the property can assume that mortgage. Now, if it goes to a veteran purchaser, so let's say that you have that 3% or 2.5% loan, and you go to sell that property, and a veteran who's eligible for a VA loan buys it, then they'll just use their VA loan to assume that interest rate and loan that you currently have. You can also sell it to a non-veteran. That non-veteran would get your interest rate and essentially get your VA loan. You lose your VA loan privilege, or the portion of it that you use to purchase that home, and you won't get that back until that loan gets paid off, refinanced, or sold, or whatever, right? So somehow, some way, that loan goes away, then you'll get your VA loan benefits back. So there is that, but if you're in a tight spot and you don't want a foreclosure, that can be an option. The other thing is loan modifications. So you can always ask your loan servicer about loan modification, probability, to see if there's a way that they can modify your loan. Sometimes that could work too, especially if they're going to be upside down, or a potential of losing money. For example, you owe $500,000 on the house and the house is worth $450,000, right? They're upside down. Going through the foreclosure process is very expensive for the lender. So those are two options for you. So let's jump back into this story. All right, so this is about the Queens, and they said that their mortgage servicing company, Mr. Cooper, said in a statement, explored every possible avenue to work through a solution for this customer, but it said the VA needs better loss mitigation options, and referred NPR to a letter from advocates, industry, and veteran groups urging the VA to restart the PCP program. The VA has really let people down. The Department of Veterans Affairs has really let people down, said Christy Kelly, a consumer lawyer in Virginia, who says she is hearing from a lot of other veterans in the same situation as Ray and Becky Queen. The homeowners entered into COVID forbearance. They were made certain promises, and there were certain representations that were made, says Kelly. And the VA essentially pulled the rug out from under everybody. It's pretty horrific. So for some homeowners, ending the program may not mean foreclosure, but it still means a financial hardship. Many of these people have 2 or 3% interest rate loans, Kelly says. With the PCP program, they could keep that interest rate, but now she says the only way they'll be able to save their home is to enter into a loan modification, which is what I talked about too, where the interest rate will be around today's market rate of 7.5%. For most people, their payments will increase, and that's not necessarily true. It's not an automatic to the current rate. So anyway, for most people, their payments will increase $600, $700 a month because the VA has decided to end the partial claim program. Many homeowners can't afford such large or huge increases in their monthly payment. Another option here is if you have equity in your home, you could do, and your credit's not completely garbage, or you have a ton of equity, right? So the more equity, the worse your credit can be, is kind of how that works. But you could potentially pull out a home equity line of credit to kind of help bridge it, to help get you out, and the payments would be a little bit less. All right, so jumping back into this, many homeowners can't afford such huge increases for their monthly payment. According to data firm ICE Mortgage Technology, 6,000 homeowners with VA loans who had COVID forbearances are currently in the foreclosure process, and 34,000 more are delinquent. Wow. So 40,000 veterans loans, right? So VA loans, 40,000 veteran loans are either in foreclosure or are currently delinquent. So this is to you guys, this is horrible. We need to bring, if 40,000 is a big number. So with 40,000 people, bringing light to the VA's inability to help, not really financially, right? Because they're not giving you money, but to help be able to move the payment pieces around and actually take that chunk of missed payments and add it to the end of the loan would be a great thing. So let's jump back into it. Kelly says most other homeowners in America, people with FHA loans, which is kind of the civilian sector's comparable loan program. So we as veterans have the VA home loan. Civilians will have the FHA loan, which is typically it's a 3%-ish down payment loan. So people with FHA loans, for instance, or loans backed by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, still have ways to avoid foreclosure by moving missed payments to the back of their loan term. But and here's the other piece. Don't if you're late on your mortgage and you're not making payments and you're in a tight situation, do not communicate that information with your lender, because there might be a way. There are hardship packages that many of these lenders will have. I mean, if your loan's with a credit union or whoever, they may have hardship packages, both short-term and long-term versions that might be able to help you as well. And again, like I said, there's also the opportunity to sell the home if you had to, with the use of the ability to have that as an assumable loan. So your VA loan is an assumable loan, and getting a low interest rate is very advantageous for a buyer, right? So you'll attract more people. So moving on, homeowners with VA loans don't, because VA ended that program. So it says here, veterans are being treated worse than most other homeowners, Kelly said. So I'm going to kind of push those two things together here again. So Kelly says most other homeowners in America, people with FHA loans, for instance, or loans backed with Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, still have ways to avoid foreclosure by moving missed payments to the back of their loan term. But homeowners with VA loans don't, because the VA ended that program. So veterans are being treated worse than other homeowners, Kelly said, and Kelly is that attorney. So to me, those two paragraphs right there are the biggest eye-opener, right? Makes it very clear. And I would say anytime that there is some sort of a misalignment like this, with a federal agency, now is the time, right? And my God, we're at 16 minutes. So now is the time that we actually reach out to our congressional elected officials and let them know, hey, look, fix this, because this is not right. This is not how you treat veterans differently and worse than everybody else. So for using a benefit, right? For using a benefit that was earned. So let's jump back into it. Service members are in a position where they are going to lose their home, she says. And for most people, that's everything they work for. And all their wealth is in their homes. True, most people. VA has a plan, but it could be too late. The Department of Veterans Affairs says it has no choice but to end the program. We had a short-term authority for a specific program during COVID, says John Bell, Executive Director of the Veterans Benefits Administration's Loan Guarantee Service. It wasn't part of our normal authority. Some in the industry think the VA did, in fact, have the authority to extend the program, but either way, it ended. Now, though, the VA is taking the situation seriously. NPR has learned that the VA is working on a new program to replace the old one. It will work in a different way, but to a similar effect, to save people from foreclosure. Bell says it's going to take 4 or 5 months to get it up and running. That's too long for many of those 6,000 VA homeowners who are already in the foreclosure process, not to mention the many more who are delinquent. Already, data shows that more VA homeowners have been headed into foreclosure since the VA ended the PCP program. The same is not true for FHA loans or loans backed by Fannie or Freddie Mac. With so many homeowners at risk, there's growing pressure on the VA to stop foreclosing on veterans until it gets this fixed, until it gets its fix up and running. That's kind of a weird sentence. There should be a pause on foreclosure, says Steve Sharp, a senior attorney at the National Consumer Law Center. Veterans should really be able to have an ability to access this program when it comes online, because it's been so long since they've had something that will truly work. Sharp says the VA could restart the PCP program that it shut down. They have the authority to do both. He says, pausing foreclosures sounds like a good idea to veteran Ray Queen in Oklahoma. Let us keep paying towards our regular mortgage between now and then, he says. Then once the VA has that fix, we can come back and address the situation. That seems like the adult, mature thing to do, not put a family through hell. NPR repeated Ray Queen's plea to John Bell at the VA directly. Bell said the VA is exploring all options at this point in time. We owe it to our veterans to make sure that we're giving them every opportunity to be able to stay in the home, Bell said. Ray and Becky Queen are hoping the VA does let people keep their home until the new program can offer them a way to get current on their mortgages, because if the fire truck shows up after the house burned down, it's not going to do much good for the tens of thousands of veterans and service members who need help now. And that concludes it. I know it was long, but I think that's important information. If you hung on to the end, I do think that this is something, at least in my opinion, that we should call on to our congressional leaders. So thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.